Hey everybody, it's Karen with Food and Family. Happy New Year. Today's New Year's Day, as you know, and it's tradition, especially here in the South, that we have pork, greens, and black-eyed peas. Today, I'm making them all, and I'm going to do the traditional way of cooking them. I have some collard greens that I've washed real good, and I'm going to show you how I take them off the stems. You got this big stem running down the middle, and it's tough, and you don't want to eat that. So I just grab a hold of it like this and start pulling and just slide that right on off, and it just comes out so easy. But you don't want to eat that. It's not tasty, and it's tough. So I had most of them done. I just saved a few so you could see how I do it. And then we're going to get them cut up, and we're going to get them put in our pot and get them to cooking. And it doesn't take that long to cook them. You want them good and tender. And I would say I'm going to cook these probably a couple of hours, and I'll check them. But we're going to season them up real good. And I've got some smoked shank here that I'm going to put some in my greens, and I'm going to put some in my black-eyed peas as well. So it's going to make it real good. So what I do when I go to cut them up is I kind of just layer them on top of each other and just get you a good layer. It doesn't matter how you lay them out. I just usually see it comes out kind of looking like this. I just fold it in half and lay it down, and it takes me just a minute to get them all sliced up. We're gonna chiffonade them. It just means cutting them into ribbons, but you don't want them real thin. Get a little heft to them. I'll show you how I do it. Can you see me cutting them up there? Move out this a little bit so you can see. I should get this one finished, and I'll show you about how thick or how wide I'm cutting them. So they're about maybe 3/4 of an inch wide. And then we're going to take them and just put them over in our pot, and we'll add some good stuff to it. So what did you guys do last night for New Year's? Did you spend a quiet one? It's been a different kind of year, isn't it? Hopefully 2021 is going to be a lot better for everyone. And we spent a quiet evening at home, and some of the neighbors did fireworks, so we stood out on the deck and watched the fireworks show. It was really beautiful. And, so we didn't get any fireworks this year. We usually do get a few, but we didn't. We just kind of stayed in and stayed quiet yesterday. And so we didn't get out to get any. See, it doesn't take but a minute to get these chopped up. This was just one bunch of collards. There's only 2 of us, so we didn't need a whole lot. If you want, you can use frozen. They're good too. I've used frozen a lot of times. You can buy them bagged. They're already washed, and they're very clean. Only thing there is they have a lot of the stems in it. So when I buy those for convenience, I end up standing there taking time picking all those big stems out. So I just rather do this. It's actually quicker for me to buy the bunch, wash them, take that stem off, and cook them myself. Cut them up myself. So, okay, so we got that done. And see, I've got a big pot. See how full that pot is? After they cook, though, they're good cooked down. They, like turnip greens, you start with this the big bunch, and then they cook down to much and nothing. collards don't cook down quite as bad, but they do cook down a lot. I'm going to get rid of this board, meaning I'm just going to move it. So we're going to put some water in it, and I just want my water to come up just over the grains. So when I put my water in, I take my hand and I press down those grains, and I just want my water to come up just over my hand, and I'll try to show you that. See if you can let me tilt you down a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. See if you can see that. Yeah, I think you can see that. See, and the water's just over the top of my hand right here. So, and that's what you want. We're going to put a lid on it, and it keeps that, keeps the steam in. So it doesn't let them evaporate so much, so quickly. And move you back up. So we're going to put some, I'm going to put some salt and pepper in it. But first, let's get this shank in. And because I want to kind of bury it down in there among those greens. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I can get it open. I think I might need to sharpen my knife. I've talked about that before. Okay, so I'm going to take it, see what it looks like. It's just a smoked shank, and I'm going to put it down in that. I want it to get all through, and I'm going to, let's save that bigger one for the peas. Put this smaller one in with it. Doesn't matter. We're going to put some goodies in. Get that down in there. Okay. Now, this is something I do. I know a lot of people don't. But I put nutmeg, fresh grated nutmeg, in any kind of greens that I cook. And it doesn't take a whole lot. It just does something to them. I can't even tell you. You can't taste the nutmeg. So, it's not like you're making a sweet dish. But it just goes so well with these greens and just gives it a little extra taste. So I'm just going to put a good grate in there. And that's probably a quarter of a teaspoon. It's not a whole lot. See, I just dusted the top. And so we'll stir that all down in there real good. So I'm going to put some salt. Now I'm going to put a little bit of fresh black pepper, grind that in there. Now sometimes I put red pepper flakes in it. You can do that. I'm not going to do it today, but I have. And you don't want enough to make them hot unless you want spicy. And I don't want it hot, but let's get that pushed in that water. We'll come back and stir it in a little bit when it comes down, and we're going to get all that salt and pepper, nutmeg distributed. Let's turn it on. Where's my lid? There it is. Cover it up. Now I'm going to get ready to put on a pot of black-eyed peas. So I want to get them rinsed, and I'll look them over. I'll kind of look through your peas a little bit, because sometimes your black-eyed peas especially will have little clumps of dirt in them, or they'll have little bitty rocks, and you don't want to put that in your food. So give me a minute and I'll be back. I'm going to get it set up and get my peas going, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, so I got my peas washed, and I looked through them to see if there's any rocks or bad peas or anything. And there's one thing you can look for when you wash your peas and you put them in your water. Any bad pea will float to the top. So then you could just skim them right off. That's one good thing. I have nothing floating to the top on mine. So I've got a good bag of peas. There was no dirt, no rocks or anything. So I've got it covered with water. Now, one rule of thumb, if you want, is when you put water over your peas, put your finger in. I always have impeccably clean hands. I've washed mine several times. Y'all just don't see me wash them. I do it before I come on the camera. But put your finger in and have your water come up to your first knuckle here. And that's a good rule of thumb with water. Now, I may have to come back later and add a little bit more. I'll just have to watch them. So we're going to get them seasoned up. Now, these black-eyed peas, they cook a lot quicker than other dried beans. You can use fresh black-eyed peas. You can get frozen. They're really good as well. But we like the dried black-eyed peas, and they take about an hour and a half at the most to cook. You want them good and tender. So we're going to add some salt, and I'm going to put this other smoked shank in there. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. I can always add later. You can't take out. And I know I hear people say don't add salt when you're first cooking your dried beans. It'll make them tough. I've never had a tough bean and I salt mine in the beginning. So I think that's an old wives' tale. I'm going to call it that. So I'm going to put this shank in there. And then listen, y'all have heard me say this so many times. I'm going to add some butter. Butter never hurt anything. To me, it always makes it better. So I'm going to add a little bit of butter. And that's probably a good tablespoon. And we're going to get this covered. And now I'm going to come back in a little bit and I'm going to chop up some onion. And I'm going to put some onion in it and let it cook with the peas. But I want to get them started first. And then I'll come back. I've got them covered right now. But when they start boiling, I'll turn them down real low. And if I need to keep them from boiling over, I'll cock the lid on the pot so they won't boil over. So we're going to get that going. Now I've got a Boston butt that I want to get going in the oven. It's a pork shoulder Boston butt. It comes from the shoulder part of the pig. So I'm going to put this in my oven, in my not a roasting pan, but this is a porcelain cast iron pan. And I'm going to put just a splash of broth in with it, but I'm going to coat it in Dixie dirt. And this is, I saw it online. I was telling my son about it, and he ordered us some. And it comes from here in Alabama. It comes from Andalusia, Alabama. So we're going to use this to season our pork with. And I may add a little bit of salt, but it's got salt in it, so I won't add a whole lot. And then I'll shred that up and add some barbecue sauce on it. And that's going to be our meal. I'll probably make some cornbread, but I've got something special that I want to make for you guys. So I'm going to get this started, and then we'll get to that later. It's going to be a surprise. So I'm going to get this open, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in my pot. I'm going to adjust you down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And so you can see in my pot there. Can you see that? I think you can. So then I'm going to use my dirt, my Dixie dirt. Now I set this pork butt out about an hour ago. You want it to come to a little bit of room temperature, but when you let your meat set a little bit before you put it in the pan, it won't seize up. If you put cold meat in the hot pan, which this is going to go in the oven, but it wants to seize up, and it takes a little bit longer to get tender. So we don't want to do that. So you see how I coated it. And I think I'm flip it over and put some on the other side. And I'm going to cook this with the fat side up. And now I'll probably come back and move it around later. Let's get some on the side. Let's get him coated really good. But I'm going to cook him fat side up. So that way, as it cooks and that fat melts, it just kind of seeps right on through that meat, and that gives it some good flavor. So let me rinse my hand real quick since I touched it, and let's get a splash of our broth in it. I'm using chicken broth. If you had veggie broth, that would be good. Beef broth, pork, whatever you can find, but I had chicken, so that's what I'm using. And I'm just going to put a little bit because this meat is going to make some juices on its own. So, and this is less sodium. You guys know I like that. So I've got my oven preheated to 400. And I'm going to put this in, and it's going to take, to get really tender, it's probably going to take it a couple of hours, but I'm going to check it. I want it to come to an internal temperature of around 190. That seems to be a really good number to break down all of those tissues inside this butt and make it tender, which is what you want. You don't want to bite into a tough piece of meat. So let me get this in the oven. Oh, I've got to adjust my racks, y'all. I should have done that before I got started, but I didn't. I didn't think I needed to. So I'll get that started, and I'm going to set my timer for 2 hours. I'm going to set it for an hour and a half and check it, but I'm sure that's not going to be enough, but I can always add more time. Once you overcook it, you can't take it away. So let me get this cleaned up, and I've got my peas going. Our collards, they're going to come up to simmer in a little bit, and we'll be back and I'll show you. Okay, everybody, this is the pork. I took it out of the oven. It was at 195, between 195 and 200. And I sliced it up, and it is so tender. I'm going to put a little barbecue sauce on it, and then we're going to put it back in the oven and let this sauce cook on it a little bit, and it'll just get caramelized, and we are going to be ready to eat. So I wanted to come back on here and show you this. I'll finish putting the sauce on it in just a minute, but I'll show you how tender these greens are. Look at here. Ooh, my phone fogged up. I'm sorry. Look at here how tender. They are just, see that meat? And look at that, just falling apart. Okay, and our peas, I'm going to show you them. Maybe the camera won't fog up. It's all that steam coming from the food. Oh, it's hot and it's good. See that? See those peas? How good they are. Oh, they're going to be delicious. So I've got some cornbread in the oven. I'm going to get this meat. I'm going to finish putting the barbecue sauce on it and get it in the oven. And we're going to be ready to eat in a few minutes. Now here's to the surprise. I'm going to make a banana pudding. It is one of our family favorites. And so I hope you'll try it and you'll like it. But I'm going to adjust you down so you can see exactly what I'm doing, okay? All right, here we go. Okay, I think that's good right there. So I've got 4 cups of milk that I'm going to put in this pot right here. And I'm going to let it be heating up. My pot was already hot, y'all. I'm going to let that be heating up. So you don't want it boiling. It's just warm. Now I'm going to break up 5 eggs. Now I want the yolks, but we're not going to throw away. I don't want these rolling off. We're not going to throw away the whites. We're going to use those to make a meringue to top our banana pudding with. Okay, sit over there, guys. So we're going to put our yolks in one bowl, and our yolks are going to go into the pudding. You don't want, well, I did that backwards, but that's okay. You don't want any of the yellow to get in your egg whites. I meant to put that in the bigger bowl, but that's okay. So if the yellow gets into the egg whites, it won't beat up for your meringue. So, but we're gonna get these all separated here. If you've got an egg separator, that would be good. To me, this is just as easy to do it this way. It doesn't take long. I'm using 5 eggs. Now I use extra large to jumbo eggs. I think they make better. Makes it a little richer. And my eggs were at room temperature, so that makes them a little easier to separate. If they're cold, they will. It just takes a little bit longer. Can you see how I'm just back and forth with it? Okay, so let's get these out of the way, and I'm going to rinse my hands since I've got egg on. So we got to be clean. We don't want any cross-contamination. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and beat up these yolks in this bowl. We set our egg whites back here. And I'll get out the mixer in a minute, and we'll beat those whites to make our meringue, but we're not ready for that yet. So we're going to beat up these eggs. So we got the milk coming too, just to get warm. Now, to these eggs, we're going to add a 1/2 cup of milk. Let's go ahead and whisk it in. Set it there. I need another bowl. So we can move that out of our way. So in this bowl, we're going to add 1 cup of sugar. One cup of sugar and 1/3 cup of cornstarch. Now the cornstarch is going to help this pudding to get thick. Put that in there. So we want to stir it together. And we're going to add just a pinch of salt. Salt helps bring out the sweetness in your sweets. I think we've talked about that before. Just a pinch. Doesn't take much. We're going to mix this up. Now we're going to add our egg mixture into this. We're going to whisk it, and it's going to be thick. Move that out of our way. way. Get things out of your way as you go in, and you won't have to work around them. Can you see how it's mixing up? Now when this milk gets warm in the pot here, we're going to pour some over into this egg mixture. What you want to do is temper the eggs, because if you don't temper them, you'll have scrambled eggs, and you do not want scrambled eggs in your beautiful pudding. So then we're going to add some vanilla after we stir that around for just a few minutes. See, and this is getting warm. I can see there's little bubbles around the edge of the pan. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's getting little bubbles around the edge of the pan, and I can see a little steam coming off of it. So I'm going to go ahead. We don't want it boiling, remember. I'm going to put a little bit of milk, and I'm going to stir, whisk real good as I go. So this is tempering. I'm going to add a little bit more. Now, those eggs and that milk should be good friends by now. So we're going to add back to this pot of the milk that we didn't use. Let's get all that sugar. So we need that in our pudding. You want it tasting good. Okay. Now, we'll turn our heat back on. And we're going to stir this around probably 3 or 4 minutes. And it's going to get nice and thick. And we're going to add in our vanilla. If you put your vanilla in now, as this cooks, your vanilla is just going to cook out. So you want your vanilla to go in last. So let's go over this again. I've got 4½ cups of cold milk. Separated out 4 cups and then a 1/2 cup. 1 cup of sugar, a 1/3 cup of cornstarch, a pinch of salt, 5 eggs, separated, beat the yolks, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Heat up your 4 cups of milk until steaming, and whisk together your sugar, cornstarch, and salt in a large bowl. Whisk in eggs and remaining 1/2 cup of milk. Then when you get that mixed together good, you're going to whisk in 1/2 of the hot milk, a little bit at a time to temper your eggs. And then you want to get that smooth, and then you're going to add it all back to the pot of your remaining warm milk. Now we're going to cook this over. I've got it on like a medium heat. These burners, 2 front burners on this stove, get real hot. So it's about a medium heat. You're going to stir it constantly until it comes to a boil. And then we're going to cook it 3 to 4 minutes. It'll get thick and it'll coat the back of your spoon. Then we're going to stir in our vanilla, and then we're going to pour it over our bananas and our vanilla wafers. So let me pause you right here for just a minute while I finish cooking this and getting it thick, and then I'll come back and we'll put it all together, okay? All right, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so we've got our pudding. It's nice and thick. I've switched over to a whisk. I'm going to use my spoon to let y'all see how thick it is. You can see how thick that is, and it is hot. And then we're going to stir in our vanilla. 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I should measure. I don't. I just splash. 1, 2, and so we're going to stir that in, and our pudding is ready. So we're ready to make the meringue. That'll be ready as soon as I get this vanilla stirred in real good. If y'all could just smell it once you add that vanilla in there. You can you see? See how thick that is? So we get that vanilla in there. So we're gonna let that sit there a minute. We're gonna start our meringue. So I've got the yolks left from the eggs we use. So there's 5 yolks. I'll put those in there. I need some cream of tartar, which I forgot to get out. And we're going to put just a smidge of cream of tartar. What cream of tartar does, it helps stabilize those egg yolks, and they hold together a little better for you. So for those 5 egg yolks, I'm going to put about 1/4 teaspoon. It doesn't take much. Got my whisk attachment. We're going to lock it down and start whisking. So it'll form soft peaks to begin with, and then we're going to add sugar. But we're going to add our sugar slowly. So turn it on up. Got to get that air incorporated in there to get a good fluffing meringue. You want it fluffy, but you want it stiff so it'll hold together. I can't wait to eat this. I hope y'all make it. And if you do, please let me know how you like it. I would certainly appreciate if you would share my page and subscribe and hit that notification bell so whenever I post a video, you'll know about it. Share with your friends, and I'll send you share it too. Okay, let's check this out. We're still soft peaks for right now. Seeing those pretty soft peaks. Can you see that? They're not stiff. I'll show you when they're stiff, because you can take the whisk and they'll just stand straight up. So I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of sugar. And we're going to do it slow. When I make meringue, I do 2 tablespoons of sugar per egg white. And this is going to be just a little less than that, but I think it's going to be plenty of sugar. A little at a time. I normally do a tablespoon at a time, and that's what I'm putting in. Put it on up there. And then it'll get stiff and glossy. Yes, the meringue is going to be so fluffy on top of this pudding. And we'll let it brown it. It'll get light brown. And it's going to be so good. Banana pudding is like a dessert staple in the South. My family loves banana pudding. Alright. It's getting so stiff, y'all. I'm going to show you what it looks like in a second. It's getting glossy. So I know that might be too bright. Is that better? Let's check that out. Let's check that out. Now watch it. Okay, I want you to see this when I now watch that. See how it stands up? I told my little grandson one day we were making meringue together. Meringue, as he called it when he was little. And I had him dump it on top of his head. Not set the bowl on his head, but hold it up over his head. And it didn't drop off. And I knew it was ready. And he knew it was ready. So just another way of it. But I wouldn't suggest holding it over your head. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. I'm going to move this. Give me just a second. Let me clear the deck here. So I want you to see how I put this together. Move this. Now, I've got my big casserole dish that I'm going to cook it in, and my vanilla wafers. And I just dump the vanilla wafers in. Then we're going to cut this banana up. And we like banana pudding, but we don't put a whole lot of banana in it. And it's just the way we like it, with just a little bit of banana. So let me move you down a little bit so you can see. There you go. Then I just slice it up kind of thin. Not too thin. Whoops, drop that one. We'll pick it up in a little bit. Slippery little booger. Get that banana cut up in there. Kind of spread it out a little bit on those wafers. You see how I've got it distributed out? Now we're going to take this pudding, give it a little stir. A little big stir, and pour it over those wafers and bananas. Looky there. Oh my goodness, y'all. So I'm going to take my spatula and I'm going to kind of move those wafers around so we can get that pudding all the way through those wafers. And as they sit there, those wafers are going to get soft. Now, we don't want to waste any. Get it all off of there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come back with this meringue. Get another spatula. Move that. We're going to come back with this meringue and we're going to put it on top of this pudding. Looky there. That's going to be a lot of meringue, palate high. And when you spread, we're going to spread it out, but you want to seal those edges against the dish, because if you don't, your meringue will weep. And if you've ever made meringue and put it on a pie or a pudding and it gets kind of moist around it, it's because it wasn't sealed well. And I'm going to just push it down, seal it up against this dish. See how I'm doing that? Can you see how it's, don't miss any. That's a lot of meringue, guys. I love meringue on pies or puddings. And then we're going to put this in the oven and we're going to let it brown a little bit. I'm going to form some peaks. Now, see, I think I've got it all sealed around the edges. Just take the back of your spoon and kind of dab around, get some peaks going. And as that browns, those peaks will brown up and they'll get a little darker than the rest of the pudding. And the meringue, and it just makes it so pretty. Now, looky there. So, I'd have a little taste. What do you think?